on February 7th, 2001. What happened on that day?
While I was in the operating room, I died. I experienced the most beautiful, it is the most magical, beautiful experience any human can have. I was in the brightest light you can possibly think of. And I remember everything. I was with our source, with our creator.
Did you, at that time, do you remember having some sort of conversation or messages or life review or anything, or was it just bright light?
Feeling at peace for the first time ever.
I assume you just felt so hopeless. What was going on in your life at the time?
I was completely numbed. When that first panic attack started, I went from doctor to doctor and I couldn't figure out, I had this pain.
What's the thing that you want people to hear most? What do you want them to walk away with from our conversation?
I think the most important message here is
she died while giving birth and returned with a memory of the light. She had experienced a moment of profound peace that felt more real than the world around her. Valerie Vidal was raised between New York and Puerto Rico, and her early life was marked by loss, instability, and a longing for the mother she imagined was still alive. She learned early on to be strong and self-sufficient, but when her body gave out, it expired during childbirth, everything went quiet. And in that silence, she found peace, presence, and an overwhelming love that she had never felt here on earth. Today, she guides others in reconnecting with their own divine source. She's a contributing author in our latest book, Awakened Hearts, Sacred Stories of Breaking Free and Rising Higher, and you will be so inspired by her chapter. So stay with us, because what she remembered in the light may help you remember yourself. I'm your host, David Trotter. Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast. Valerie, thanks so much for taking time to hang with us today. It's so great to be with you.
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so very much. I'm so honored to be here right now.
Yeah. So your chapter in Awakened Hearts is so powerful, and it begins on February 7th, 2001. What happened on that day?
Well, David, apparently two important things happened that day. I was going to go on my C-section. I was going to have my baby girl. And I was scheduled to have my C-section early that morning. And I had been working endlessly on my baby's room. I was swollen. I mean, you can probably imagine how we're at the last stage, right, of giving birth. So while I was in the operating room, I died. So yes. So as soon as they took my baby out, I checked her fingers. I was like counting them, and oh my God, the most beautiful baby I've ever seen. And right then and there, I just left the building.
You passed out.
I completely left the building. So
did they try to resuscitate you, or were you more just like your body was still alive, but you were consciously out of body?
So I don't think I was consciously, and I believe I completely ceased to exist, as I call it, because they closed me up. You know, they just took my baby out. Mm-hmm. I had to push my placenta out after I was able to wake up. So they were very, very scared. I bled out essentially. So they just sewed me back in, and they waited.
They sewed you back up without the placenta coming out.
Correct. They didn't take anything but the baby.
Yeah. And then how did they bring you back? Like, well, I guess I should just say, what did you experience while you were out of body?
So I experienced the most beautiful, people talk about near-death experiences, and I tell you, it is the most magical, beautiful experience any human can have. I had no idea that I had a near-death experience for 25 years. It was absent to me what had happened. And to tell you, I was in the brightest light you can possibly think of. And I remember everything as, like I'm telling you right now, like my mind just took me there, right? And the peace, and it was almost like think about you're like in this bright white, then gold glitter. It was just like very, just magical, just beautiful. And I was with our source, with our creator.
And so, did you at that time, do you remember having some sort of conversation or messages or life review or anything, or was it just bright light?
I remember feeling at peace for the first time ever, for the first 21 years of my life.
Hmm.
And I didn't have any words, but I do remember the feeling of feeling like if I had been taken, and it was the most peaceful. When I tell you peaceful, it is just profound. So I felt cared
Hmm.
for the first
Hmm.
time in 21 years.
Yeah. You obviously you're experiencing this peace, and that's something that you had not experienced previously growing up.
Exactly.
Uh, Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you were born, and kind of the circumstances that led you to that moment in 2001.
Absolutely. So I was born in New York, Manhattan, and both of my parents, unfortunately, they were also I call it now, like a result of society and trauma. They were both alcoholics. They were both drug addicts. And at the end of the day, that war that you have inside, it's just something that is going to somehow show in your outer world, right? So that's where I was born. And by the age of 2, I lost my mother to an overdose. She was actually celebrating her 27th birthday. And upon her death, my father, he completely lost it. He felt guilty his entire life because he was the one that was there with her, giving her that last dose, right? So he completely lost it for a very long time, I want to say. And he was also a veteran from Vietnam. So, I mean, add that, and it was just a bomb just waiting to explode. So those were only my first two years. From there, I bounced from home, relatives in Puerto Rico, coming back to New York because my father, although he was a sad soul, he loved children. He just wanted to be with us. He just wanted to be, you know, what he knew he could be. It was just very difficult for him. But then, all of the violence and whatnot ended us in foster care. So I did that for about 7 years. I remember stability at 8 years old.
You said so you had siblings at the time that were
Yes,
traveling with you?
yes, yes.
Hmm.
So my baby sister, she was able to go with me to Puerto Rico at the end of all of the ordeal. But I also had brothers, and then 2 older sisters.
What was it about age 8 where you finally felt stability? Was it a particular foster family or?
So my grandmother, she fought for my custody and my sister's custody. And against all odds, we made it to Puerto Rico, and my father was not allowed to go and get us anymore because while he had the legal custody, he could do that for a very long time, which is why we kept, bouncing, or I kept bouncing from Puerto Rico to New York constantly.
Mhm. And so all of those experiences, my goodness, the loss of your mom, the instability, challenging relationship with your dad, how did that environment impact your growing up years, high school and post high school? How did it impact your relationships? As you look back now, it's amazing. When you're going through it, it's just life, right?
Correct.
But then when you look back, you're like, whoa, okay. So how was the trajectory of your life impacted by those circumstances?
It's funny that you asked me about those early years right of school, which are very critical and very important. And statistically, I was not holding the behavior that children from trauma held. So I was very quiet instead of trying to express anything in the outer world, right? I was very observant. And I remember being called an indigo kid. I remember very particularly being
Who
called
called you that?
the teachers.
Okay. And what
Yes.
did you know what that meant at the time?
I had no idea.
How would you interpret that now? What do you think they saw in you?
So later on, as I'm, going into school, studying psychology and all of these things, I realized that what the society calls now neurodivergent kids or autistic kids and things like that, it's, well, that category. And other people would call it, the mini geniuses, the way, our particularities and things like that. There's a label for everything. At the end of the day, our brain structure, it's very different from the norm. We process information a whole lot different. So the way I saw life was more like patterns. And so I was a very bright child. I never had a grade that was not either A or B. By the time I was in school in sixth grade, I skipped that grade. They put us on a program called a pilot program. I graduated high school when I was 16.
Wow. My goodness. So, like you said, your outward behaviors were not necessarily manifesting the what you had experienced inwardly. At what point did you find that there were some outward manifestations of those traumatic experiences? When did that kind of come into your life?
Absolutely. I remember it very vividly because something very significant happened. So, throughout my entire childhood, up until the age, I want to say it was either 12, 13, or 14, I was about to be a teenager, or I was just on that age. I discovered that I saw my mother's death certificate for the first time. And prior to that, I thought that she was alive. So, the secrets of the family impacted my inner world because I thought I truly thought that my mom was alive. I had never seen a picture of her. I had never seen her grave. I thought everybody was lying to me when they told me that she died in her sleep. So I had created a fantasy internally, very quiet, that she was waiting for me and that one day I was going to find her. So when
Hmm.
I saw that death certificate,
Hmm.
that illusion collapsed. I got very angry because now everybody's a liar, right? You all, lied to me. She didn't die in her sleep. She had an overdose. So it just turned my entire inner world into chaos. And now I was angry.
Hmm. So you graduated at 16. Where did your path take you from there?
So I graduated at 16, had my first child at 17, which by the way, today is his birthday. He's 28 today.
Ah, so fun.
Yes. So I decided after my near death experience, something tremendous happened there. I was 21. And upon arriving, that's when I started questioning life. There's something that ignited that I needed to know more about what I was feeling because I was then in pain. And I couldn't understand where that pain came from because it was invisible. So that's when I went to go study psychology. I needed to understand the world around me. People said one thing, did another. It was so confusing. I said, you know what? Let me just try to figure this out in a book. There's got to be a book that can explain the madness that I'm seeing in the outer world. So that's how all of that transpired.
26 years of age, you came to a point where you experienced a breakdown.
Hmm.
What were the circumstances surrounding that? How did that impact your life?
So I had recently, right before that happened, I was working three jobs. I was working a full time job, a part time job, and a weekend job. I was in school full time. I was having 12 to 15 credits. I studied nights. I had two children. I had a husband. I had a house. And I don't know if I can say I had a life outside of that, but most definitely I was, on the go, 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 go. I was on a mission.
I mean, that is so much, Valerie. That is the uh, picture of an overachiever. Like, were you trying? Did you need the money? Did you? did you find that you were trying to fill a void internally? I know what that's like. Uh, what was driving you at that stage of your life?
When I saw in my first year of college, 21, I saw the statistical data. And immediately, you have to remember, I told you my brain worked in patterns. I understood statistics immediately. It was so profound. I said, okay, this is the chart, and this chart says that all of these things, which I had, like all of them, I was
Traumatic
going to be
experiences and yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It said that the probabilities were that my life was going to be XYZ,
Hmm.
either homeless, mental illnesses. I knew how that looked like in society because I was looking at it, right? So every
Hmm.
time I saw a woman in the streets, the statistical data would like pin my brain. And I would
Hmm.
go, no, that's not where I'm going. So then I would like strategize. So what do I need to do? So how do I move from A, B, C to D, F, G? And that's why I was so driven. I was very robotic. It's like, this is the plan. This is where I have to go. Nobody talked to me about going partying. I didn't even have my first drink until I was 27.
Wow. Wow.
So I was just going, 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 going,
Yeah.
knowing that if I did that, I would not be them.
Yeah. You would be safe. You would be an achiever. You would be
I would make it out of poverty. I would make it out of the statistical data. I was
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to be them.
So 26 years of age, what happens? Like in the midst of all of this achievement drivenness, what happened to you?
So I had this, now I know that it was a very irrational fear of dying at the same age that my mother died.
Hmm.
So somewhere in that process of, seeing the death certificate, she passed away at 27. It just imprinted in my subconscious as this is what's going to happen to you because everybody kept saying, you look so much like your mother. You are
Mm.
your you are the spit image of your mother. And when you have all of this weird lagoons and you're trying to navigate life, I translated that as I am my mother. I
Mhm.
am going to be just like her. So I'm going to die when I'm
Mhm.
27.
And so, how did that come to a head for you?
So I think with all of this stress and all of the, the responsibilities, you just break. I mean, there's just nothing really needs to happen. Your brain, your body, your body's an alarm system and you're not processing any of these things correctly. So my body said, you're done and you break down, and I had to go be rushed to the emergency room. I had that panic attack in my at work. I had it at work. I thought I was dying. I thought I was having a heart attack. My tongue, I couldn't talk. I felt like something was just strangling me.
Mhm.
And they're like, no, it was just a panic attack. I'm like, what do you mean? So he said, you'll suffer from that your entire life. Here, this pills. That was it. And that is not true. I haven't
Mhm.
had a panic attack since 2014.
Mhm. Mhm. Were you you went to the emergency room and then you received medication and then you went home
Hmm.
and kind of just continued on your merry way?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. That was it.
And did you readjust your lifestyle or did
No.
you continue on the same path?
Yes. So since I didn't understand what, the panic attacks themselves, where they came from, I had to start then using me as an experiment, right? I needed to figure out why, because I didn't know why. And
Mhm.
that's what I started doing. So my brain said, okay, from now on, every time you get one, you have to figure out what happened. And that's what I did. So I realized that I would get a panic attack every time I was at work, at any of the jobs, at any of them. And
Mhm.
I said, okay, so maybe what this means is that I don't like that job and my body's rejecting it.
Mhm.
So I started literally jumping from one job to the next, from one job to the next, because I needed to find what my body agreed
Mhm.
with. And then I realized that a panic attack itself was the anticipation of danger. And the anticipation of danger had nothing to do with the work itself, but everything to do with my nervous system that was completely overwhelmed. And I started learning by myself the tools and ways of, the breathing and how to just control the thoughts process so that you can come down and stop anticipating anything that was not real, things along those lines. So I successfully did that myself, and was able to conquer the so-called panic attacks. And I've never had any other since 2004,
Mhm.
2014.
2014, yeah. Prior to that point, you had you write about in your chapter having attempted to take your life,
Yes.
and I bring this up with all as much sensitivity as I can. I too have had. I don't think I've had a panic attack, but when I was in 2008, I was, completely driven, workaholic. I was a pastor at the time,
Mm.
trying to help as many people as I could. Right, I had been in ministry 10 years, and I thought if I could grow this church big enough, help enough people, then I'll be somebody. Then I'll be
Mm.
okay. Right, I was
Got it.
trying to fill a different void. Like you had one void, I had a different right, and we actually both used achievement in to kind of try to fill that. For me, it resulted in a breakdown, and I chose to check myself into a mental hospital for several days. And I was really embarrassed by it. I kept thinking, I can overcome this. I'm strong enough. I shouldn't have to do this. If I go to the hospital for help, they're actually going to keep me. So I avoided going. And
Mm-hmm.
then it was just, one moment I was completely fine. The next moment I'm literally on the kitchen floor, curled up in a ball, sobbing, and I can't stop. And so, you know, I know what it's like to be in that desperate situation. And what's so crazy is people that have never been there, um, Valerie, they just don't understand, you know? Like I
Mm-hmm.
see people on the street that are probably living on the street and they're talking to themselves and everything. And prior to my breakdown, I had definitely had compassionate judgment is what I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I feel sorry for those people, but geez, you know. And when your brain kind of breaks, whether through panic attack or breakdown or whatever, you recognize, oh, okay, uh, you didn't, you made choices to get in this situation, but you didn't choose this, right? It just came up, like you said, your
Mm-hmm.
body is an alarm. Your body is an alarm. So prior to 2014, it sounds like in 2014, that was a major shift for you.
Mm-hmm.
You had some experiences, as you mentioned in the chapter, of trying to take your life. Is it just just, I assume you just felt so hopeless. What was going on in your life at the time?
So what happened was that I was completely numbed when that first panic attack started, right? I went from doctor to doctor because I kept experiencing things, right? And I couldn't figure out, I had this pain. I can only describe it as just constant, just there, just in everything I did. It didn't matter what it was. I was in pain. And then they call
Mm,
it depression, they call it anxiety, they call it this, they call it that. So one pill,
mhm,
the next pill, you have this disorder, you have this other disorder. It was so
mhm,
many pills, David. So many. And none of the pills took away the pain.
mhm.
I realized that I had made it to the top of the ladder. By the time I was in my early 30s, I was making the six figures that I said I was going to make when I had the three jobs.
You got out of the poverty.
Yeah,
You were a
exactly.
success. You were successful. You made it. You
Exactly.
overcame everything.
Everything. Everything
Yeah.
that said on those books. I'm like, but what happened? I did all of these things.
Mhm,
And I didn't cry. You mentioned something very important, and it's that you at least were crawling a bull crying.
mhm,
I didn't cry because I was told I needed to be a strong,
mhm.
successful, empowered woman, and tears were not allowed. And the pills don't let you cry either.
Right,
So
right.
imagine it's like double whammy, right? And so as I am moving through this, I realize I'm up there. I'm like, okay, I can spend 20 grand on a weekend in Vegas What am I doing next? I
Mm-hmm.
already had achieved a bachelor's degree. I said another degree doesn't do anything. I I did the jobs. I was, the titles. Everybody loved me. I mean, I could do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, this cannot be it. So I took a really good look around, little just consciously look around, and I said, nobody needs me. I don't have nothing to do here. And that's when I started saying, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Like I just calculated everything I was going to do. There was no emotion tied to it. And God behold, on my third attempt, I was in my room that day thinking, okay, the first two didn't work. I need to do this instead. And my daughter walks into my room and she looks at me and she says, Mom, you know I still need you, right? I said, you do? What did I convince myself that nobody needed me?
Mm-hmm.
So when she said that, I was like, oh, I didn't realize. I thought that nobody needed me because in all honesty, David, I felt completely invisible, irrelevant. What am I doing here? It was just, I felt a waste of time. It's just a waste of time to be here in this space. So why would I even bother? When she said that,
Mm-hmm.
everything changed. So I made an internal promise to myself because of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, so I won't ever, ever, ever attempt to do this ever again.
How
Because
old was she at the time?
she was 16.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. God, I know that feeling. I know that feeling all too well of like, oh yeah, nobody needs me. This world will be fine without me.
Literally.
Yes,
Yeah,
I have
everybody's
had
fine.
that feeling. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so amazing because when you give voice to that to the people around you or in your life, they say, "What? Are you kidding me? What do you mean I don't need you? Of course we need you, you know?" And our brains make up these illusions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So amazing. Yeah. So 2014 you referenced earlier was just a big turning point for you. No more panic attacks since then. Was there something that you began to implement in your life that
Yes.
helped you with those?
Absolutely. So because I've already had achieved all these things, and I was kind of, I guess, looking for the next thing, right? Like there's got to be something else to keep me focused. My brain needed some type of stimulus. And I had gained a lot of weight because of all of the depression, the pills, and all of this stuff. And I also had been diagnosed with my thyroid not working right. So the one that you get overweight, and they told me that I would forever have to take a pill and I was going to continue to gain weight. And I'm like, no, that is not true. Like I would just fight with the systems internally. And every single time I would try to figure it out. So I started researching and researching and researching. And then I found an article that talked about bodybuilding. And it talked about how bodybuilding helped women combat anything that had to do with thyroid issues or autoimmune disorders and things like that. So I started doing bodybuilding. God behold, David, I was about 200 and something pounds. In 6 months, I was at a size zero with
Wow.
this lean mass and just radiating just healthy. And that's the turning point of my health getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the panic attacks went away. I had, a different outlet. I had figured out the tools. The depression did not go away. I'm not gonna lie. That feeling, that pain. Well, they call it depression. I called it pain. That's still there, but at least the other stuff was non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the turning point. I did a show. I did a fitness show for the first time.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. Now, at what point would you say consciousness, mindfulness, or spirituality kind of come into your life? Did you grow up with some sort of religion or spirituality when your grandmother in Puerto Rico, or did that come later for you?
Yeah, I didn't get any of this goodness until I was 43. So this just the other day. I grew up in a very I don't know what to call the grounds. Like my grandmother, she was raised Catholic. Most people in Puerto Rico are Catholic or from some type of religion. You know, the little islands, the
Hmm.
religion is there. And a lot of my family members, they were, let me not say this wrong, Adventist.
Yes, Seventh Day
Adventist
Adventist. Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
So I saw religion, I experienced religion, and I did not believe in anything that I was seeing, experiencing. It made no sense. They said one thing, did another. I'm observing. You already know how my brain works. And I'm just like, you're all full of it. Like, you're saying that this is this, but then you do that. But so I'm like, no, I'm just not going to put all of my energy into this because I was too busy trying to make it every
Hmm.
day alive out of the madness that I felt internally. So I didn't get any of the experiences of religion themselves, other than, you know, little bits here and there, being invited to church for certain things. But I didn't judge them either. I saw it and I didn't take it. I didn't absorb it. You know what I'm saying? And I
Hmm.
said, you know what? Maybe I'm missing something because whatever they're experiencing, that's not what I'm experiencing. So good for them. Thumbs up. I'm just going to keep doing this thing without any of that talk.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until my grandmother passed away in 2023 and I received two heartbreaks back to back that completely shattered my life, you know, to the point of non-existent. I was just like not wanting to be here again, right? And I made that promise. I'm a woman of my word. So I would not break my own word.
Hmm.
And I said, I need to heal this trauma because I keep allowing people in my life, these relationships, they're not working. Everybody keeps taking from me. They don't see me. They don't see me in my heart. They take from me, but they don't give anything. So I knew I was the problem. And that's when that shift happened.
Hmm. Was there a introduction to some sort of a spiritual teacher? Was there a spiritual experience? Did you watch a particular video? Like, what was the beginning point of kind of waking up?
So what happened was that I started researching for holistic ways of healing childhood trauma because I had been on the pills, right? So that didn't work. And I said, there's got to be a way. I know there's got to be a way. I've already proven myself that there's ways whenever they said no, right?
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, David, I kid you not, in this research, I find a post from his name is Dr. My Bush's name, Brieri or something like that. And it said something along the lines of if somehow we can't prevent childhood neglect and abandonment, we can reduce the 800 pages of the DSM and the other versions, whatever, in 2 generations. And this was a psychiatrist, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
When I saw that, I proved myself right. I said, okay, he's saying, and he's a medical doctor, right? He's saying that childhood trauma can be prevented. Let me go and figure out how to. So that's when I went into research mode again and I found plant medicine. And then I'm like researching all of this plant medicine. And I'm like, okay, they're doing this in Costa Rica, in Peru. It was in the US, it was not allowed, right? It's illegal. And then all of a sudden I said, okay, God, and I'm saying God without believing in God. So, you know, we're talking about these things and we're like, okay, God, if this is real, because, you know, we got to prove ourselves that if you are real, you're going to find a way. And God behold, a flyer is given to me. And the flyer was from a shaman that lived 20 minutes away from me.
Hmm.
And he was doing ceremonies for ayahuasca
Hmm.
here in the US.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, this is real. I called him, made the appointment, and that's how plant medicine was introduced in my life.
What was that first experience like? The first time you.
The very first time I was purging in sweat for like 5 or 6 hours.
Mhm.
Nothing other than me giving birth to myself for 5 or 6 hours straight. I was covered in water, 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 water. It was me, the water, the mother, the baby, the entire cycle over and over for those 5 or 6 hours. I was giving birth to myself. That was the very first one. I would never forget it.
What did that mean to you when you say you're giving birth to yourself? Help me understand that more. What does that mean?
Literally giving birth to myself is in a literal sense. Imagine a
Okay.
woman giving birth,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm
You
that
saw it. You
woman.
felt it. Yeah.
Yeah, like
And,
I'm the woman giving birth. Like
yeah.
I'm in water, like the shape of water.
Mhm.
And I'm that woman. And she would get like she's pregnant and she's
Mhm.
giving birth and again and again and again. And I'm that was me.
Did you, was there some sort of meaning that you gave to that experience, or you just allowed it to be just the experience?
I didn't give meaning to anything. I didn't judge anything. I didn't know what was happening.
Hmm.
But the shaman told me the medicine's gonna show you what you need.
Hmm.
Don't try to interpret it. You'll know
Hmm.
later if it doesn't come in the moment. And I'm very obedient. I don't try to, bite more because I already know that if I do that, I'll continue to go in a spiral, right? So I was just trying to allow it. I didn't understand anything. There was no explanation, right? At that time, I had just made the decision to heal the childhood trauma. But on the second one, that one was very profound. I was
Hmm.
shown like in this observer watcher type of thing myself when I was about 7 years old. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. For the first time, I had prayed that the nightmares that I was having for God to take them away. And I learned to pray from an old lady that I had in a foster care. She had me in her home and she was Catholic. And all she did was pray. So as I was having these recurrent nightmares that I was walking through a battlefield and there was just like, just, it was just explosions everywhere. I would step and there was an explosion. I would step and I was an explosion. That was every night, every night. So I remember the old lady as she was praying and I did the same thing. And I'm just like praying to God, please take these nightmares away. Please take them away. David, I was shown that moment, literally the moment as I was praying, and all of these angels surrounding me. And it said, you've never been alone. And that was the day that I knew that angels were real and that God was real.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that day, which was actually October 2023, oh wow, okay, that was the day that that happened. That
Hmm.
spirituality became a thing in my life.
So powerful as a young person who you, as you said, you made up this illusion that your mom was alive, that she was
Hmm.
going to be there for you at some point, coming to the realization at 12 or 13 that she was not coming.
Hmm.
And I can imagine the sense of aloneness that you felt in that
Hmm.
moment, even though you had a grandmother and people that loved you and were nurturing you. But that sense of, as a child, your brain, is
Hmm.
making up these stories, aloneness. And then now, just 2 years ago, you've never been alone. You've
Never.
never been alone. How did that realization impact your day to day life after that moment?
Oh, it completely impacted everything. Well, first of all, now I knew that God was real. Now I knew that angels were real. Now I knew that there was these unseen forces guiding us, with us. Like I knew. And then Gaia, like the channel. Have you ever heard about that channel? Okay, so Gaia was like it came into like a post or something. And I'm like, what is this? And I had learned about Gaia through plant medicine, Gaia Earth. And I said, well, the plants are talking to me. So I started So since I was so, committed to my healing, I said, well, I need to look into this. So as I get the application and pay for that membership, I had never paid for a membership other than Prime. And I start realizing that they have all of these articles and all of this information. So I start learning about sacred geometry. I start learning about numerology. I start learning about how the universe speaks. I start learning about shamanism. And that's how that happened.
Wow. Was there a particular show or host on Gaia that really spoke to you during that time?
I could not mention one. There was there was just so many of them because they all are an experts, right, in their field. What I can tell you is that when I was learning about the sacred geometry and I was learning about numerology, these two together were active languages that I started experiencing through plant medicine. And I believe it made such an impact because of the way that my brain works with the patterns and understanding things that are outside of the language of men.
Mhm.
And in one of the ceremonies, after that few days, I don't know if you've ever done ceremony, but you will have a few days where that plant is still working there, right? And I'm talking with this lady, and she is saying something about the gifts of God and saying that those gifts are not for everyone, and da-da-da. And I said, I'm so sorry. I don't think that that information is true. And as I'm talking to her, this flower of life starts forming like on top of her, like this
Mhm.
just light being just being shown to me.
Mhm.
And I it's like I started channeling something. Now I know it was Holy Spirit, and I'm explaining to her that our experience through life and God is one that is individual, and that who are we to say that a person will or will not get the gifts of the Spirit. I have no idea what the gifts of the spirits were. But I'm telling you, when something came, like literally, I started channeling all this information like I knew about it. And the
Yeah.
flower of life formed right on top of her. And I
Mm.
was just hypnotized. So that one was very, very impactful.
How has your life changed over the last couple of years since you were introduced to plant medicine?
It's changed completely. I did 20 ceremonies, and then I was called into a different type of healing. So what I've learned through this is that if you allow yourself to be one with earth, with God, you will be spirit led through your healing. And I was given all of these instructions through it. It was no word of any man whatsoever. It was more on that this is where you have to go, this is what you have to do. After the 20 ceremonies, I didn't have to do anymore. I was sent to do a different type of healing using the teachings from those 20. And every vision that I receive, it has come to pass here. Like it has happened. All of them, including this moment, all of them have come to be because you are shown a path. You are shown the path. You are shown your destiny. And if you listen, if you sit with yourself and you're obedient to your original design, you're able to understand the puzzle.
My goodness. And so, talk to me about your participation in the Awakened Hearts anthology book. Why did you choose to participate? What was it like writing your chapter? I want to hear all about it.
So that one was very interesting because and I don't know that I've mentioned this, but I was literally called by God on my 44th birthday. And this moment of that calling, which I had just learned that God was real, right? And then he calls. I'm like, what is happening? I didn't know that you did that. I received an instruction. I was to write the testimony of my healing journey. And I had just been healing since that September prior to June of my birthday. So that's what, about 9 months or so. So Then I start putting all of the events together, and every 9 months something happened. And I'm like, was that my birthing every 9 months? Like when I was in the plant medicine, me putting together the things. And so when I started writing, I just started writing as of, okay, I need to put a book out there. And I said, okay, I'll start writing this. So I started writing, writing, writing. I wrote for a year. On my 45th birthday, like just a few months back in June, I received a dream. And in my dream, it was shown to me a heart, and it was shown to me the number 528, like in neon colors. When I tell you neon, it was just like this thing was just bright, just glowing like this, just 528, 528. But I already had learned about Hertz frequency, and I knew that 528 was the frequency of love. So I'm like, okay, so this heart means love. I'm just putting it together. God behold, when I see the awakened heart, I said, wait, okay, this is the gift that keeps on giving. There's something here. So I see the thing, and I'm like, I think I'm supposed to do this. Like, okay, so let me be obedient. I put the thing, I had to jump some hoops to get into the entire thing. David, when you guys sent me my membership number, it was 528. I fell on that floor crying, like you can possibly imagine. And here we are.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. What was it like writing the chapter telling your story?
It was interesting because I did not remember the near death experience until I had been praying, because I didn't want to write the stuff that I already had on the book that I was writing
Mm-hmm.
about the healing. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, God, what do you want me to talk about here? Like, I don't want to keep repeating myself, in every platform. Like, talk to me about this and all this stuff. Get my near death. Talk about your near death experience. Talk about when you were there with us, right there in the light. And it reminded me that in December of 2024, I was gifted the same feeling, okay, of being in that light. And at 6 p.m. that day, I recognized it. It was shown to me that I have been gifted that peace
Mm-hmm.
again as a
Mm-hmm.
gift for my healing to that moment.
Mm-hmm. My goodness. Amazing. Tell me, when you look back now at all the challenges that you have gone through, the twists and turns of life, and now in a completely different space, having experienced this healing with plant medicine, what's the thing that you want people to hear most? What do you want them to walk away with from our conversation?
I think the most important message here is none of the things that are told to you of the world, you don't need to stamp that as being true for you to you in your life, because we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. This beautiful planet is our playground. This is our school. This is part of the creations. This is part of us. And if you take a moment to focus on you and keep the distractions away, whatever it is that you're being told, but you focus on what God, I know now, that puts in your heart, right? You get a compass, and that compass has to do with a dream. That compass is what needs to drive you. In my case, the dream had been shattered. I wanted to write a book. And my counselor from high school told me, "Oh, you won't make any money writing that. So maybe you need to become an accountant." So she shattered that dream, right? I never thought about it again. Through this process, Source guided me back into doing what? Write a book. But it wasn't any book, it was a testimony, right? But the compass itself got me to this moment. So if we allow ourselves to listen to our soul, to our divinity, we will be guided out from the darkness into the light of what life is really about. All of the challenges they have, they're a piece of the puzzle. Don't discard them. Sit with them, but then feel everything. You need to feel everything so that then you can get to the finish line.
Valerie, thank you so much for sharing your story. So powerful, so powerful. Where can people follow you online? I know you really are a consciousness educator now, sharing your story and the ways that people can understand these wisdoms, these truths as you're channeling messages. What's the best place for people to connect with you?
Absolutely. So I've been sharing my journey, especially through TikTok, because I can make short videos whenever I get messages that are channeled immediately and are, so important. I'll put it in there. But most importantly, I've been using it like a diary so that people can just see the raw content from the start with no filter of trying to get all pretty or whatnot. Most of it I'm actually in my towel because I get the most downloads after I've showered. So I share them on TikTok. It'll post through the social media. And I'll be just more than happy to welcome you into that space so that you can also witness that and then possibly help you with your own journey.
Wonderful. What's the username there with
It
TikTok?
is Soul Work with God.
Soul Work with God, of course, and we'll put that link in all of our show notes, and so you can follow Valerie there. Valerie, thank you for sharing your story with so much vulnerability. Thank you for choosing life. There are lots of people in this world that love you and need you and want you, and thank you so much. Great to
You
be with
are
you.
very, very, very welcome. Thank you for your obedience, for being here with us in this Awakens Heart movement, because this is a movement, David. And I can't wait to see what happens next.